I'd like to mention something that came up when I was beginning to edit the footage together for this episode of Just Make Game. When I first started on Bannerman, I was only a month or two into production. Certain tasks that I thought would only take a day or two ended up stretching out to become about a week and a half, and the days are kind of blur together as you're doing just this one task. What I've found as I've gotten further into development and the tasks have gotten more complicated is it's more weeks and months now that are starting to blur together. When I sat down to work out what it is I want to put in this episode for this month, I had a really hard time remembering exactly what it is that I had done this month on my game. I know I'd been working on it, but for the life of me I couldn't remember the specifics of what it is I actually worked on. I had to actually go back through a lot of the footage I recorded this month and sort of skip through it and go, oh, that's right, yeah, I worked on that, and then that, and then that, yeah, of course. And then edit it together. That hasn't happened before, and I'm not really sure how I feel about that, to be honest. Number 1 on the things I did this month list is I completed the forest. I went through and finished up the rest of the tiles that I didn't get around to doing last month, and then whacked the whole level together. I'm really happy with how it looks actually. The aesthetic of it really appeals to me, and it's giving the game a good amount of variety at this moment too. I am very much aware that previous gameplay footage and screenshots were all basically set in the same level, or the same sort of looking level, so this gives it a well-needed amount of variety to the game. There are no enemy spawns in the level yet. That'll come later. The main reason I haven't chucked any enemies in there yet is the main enemies in this level I haven't finished yet. So throwing in a bunch of unrelated enemies really serves no purpose at all. The way I've got enemy spawns set up and basically level editing or map editing, whatever you want to call it, it's very easy to just go in and chuck in a few more spawns anyway, so that's no dramas. That's like a 15-20 minute job further down the track. I'm very happy with the visual effects that are present in the level as well. Gives it a good amount of sort of life to it. Much like I was talking about last month, just having a few things moving makes such a huge difference to a very static scene. So this has the cloud layers going past. It has like a low fog layer over the top of everything that comes up to about the player's waist. That's very slow moving. That adds quite a bit of variety to it. It also has just birds flying past in the background, in the very, very background layer. So you see them every now and then. You get a glimpse through the trees of just birds going past. And it also has these little bugs that I animated up, and they spawn sort of around the player whenever he's nearby on sort of like a random timer, and they fly up at a random direction and fade out as they go, and it looks really good actually. I'm really happy with the bugs, considering they were such a quick thing to put in. I mean, the animation for these is about 3 frames per bug, and there's about 4 different bugs, so it's... yeah, that's a nice, easy thing to animate and put in, and it makes a really huge difference. Another major thing that was finished up this month is Npc Interactions. So I have the blacksmith that I spoke about last month. He's all rotoscoped up, so he sits there banging on his anvil, and you can now go up and talk to him. There's a very janky sort of press E to interact little pop-up at the moment, but that'll get swapped out for something that looks better further down the track. On interacting with an NPC, pops up a little window. You get the nice big player and NPC portraits that pop up, and then a bunch of text. The voice acting will also play at this point as well. There's no real voice acting for this guy in at the moment, not even any scratch dialogue, so there's nothing to put here, but all the systems for doing so are in place. It's a very modular system, the Npc Interaction, so all it needs on my end is basically the script, the voice acting files, the names for the files, and the actual portraits and the names of the portraits. So it's really easy to add more NPCs as they get completed, which is great. And this is something that is really important whenever you add a new system, and it's why it takes quite a while to put new systems in games. You want to make them really modular, so further down the track you can just, I can just add 10 new NPCs. As long as I've got the art and the sound assets for them and the text, then I just whack them in and it's a very quick job. I've recorded lots more animations for the player, a lot of these miscellaneous animations which I've been putting off, frankly, because animating another couple of thousand frames for the player doesn't really appeal to me, but it's come to that point in the game where I need them in place so I can properly do some future things for him. So there's lots more animations like him dodging. There's different dodges for high and low, and if you're standing still, moving forward or backwards. There's also like miscellaneous animations of him entering doors, exiting doors, interacting with objects in the world. So they all needed to be done, so yeah, I went ahead and filmed them. They're not finished yet, they're not rotoscoped yet. That will be coming next month or possibly even the month after, because there's a lot to animate. One thing I do want to talk about is the dodging mechanic. Now, the dodging mechanic in Bannerman is sort of like supplementary to your actual ability to block. Certain attacks will not be able to be blocked, so it's things like projectile attacks, things that are reasonably unfeasible for the player to block with just the sword. So a guy shooting an arrow at you, it's kind of unreasonable to assume that you'll be able to block that with a sword, so if you try to block, you're going to get hit anyway. So you need to dodge those attacks. Now, the dodging mechanic makes use of some of the shadows that many of you would have noticed in the game so far. Like when you kill an enemy, he sort of just fades in a shadow, or when he hasn't like spawned yet for you to fight, he's standing in shadow and he comes out of the shadow to fight you. The way the dodging mechanic works is when you press the button, you enter into an animation, and then as you play through that animation, your character enters shadow. Now, this is a visual indicator for the player to let them know that when they're in shadow, they are basically invincible at that point. So dodging makes use of iframes or invincibility frames. Anyone that's played fighting games would be very familiar with iframes. It's like a staple mechanic of normal fighting games, and even things like Dark Souls, you know, when you can roll through an enemy's attack, you are making use of your invincibility frames. This is the same sort of thing, but it has a stronger visual indicator of when you actually are invincible and not, and that is to avoid the frustration that comes with some of those systems that some people experience, especially people that are new to Dark Souls and Demon Souls and other games like that. To the player, it appears that you have rolled through an attack, but you miss the timing. Now, what the player just sees, especially an inexperienced player, is they press the roll button, the guy started rolling, and the big dude put his hammer down, and you still got hurt anyway. If you're a Dark Souls veteran, you're watching them play it, and you go, oh, look, you just missed the timing, you were too early, you were too late. All they're seeing is their guys rolling, and they're getting hit regardless. And especially if that happens 5 or 6 times over and over again, they keep getting killed by the same guy, they're just going to go, that's bullshit, fuck this. So having a visual indicator of when you actually are invincible and you're not is a good way to avoid that sort of frustration in the player. So you can see that if you press dodge too early, you'll jump into a shadow and then you'll start coming back out again, and that's when the attack hits you, and you know that he hit me because I wasn't in the shadow. Or if you press it too late, you haven't quite gotten into the shadow yet, and you get hit and you take damage, you know it's because you didn't get the timing right. That's one of the important things there that needs to be rotoscoped up. That's the first thing I'm working on, is the dodging. And then following that is the quick little melee attacks. Now these are sort of, if I want to talk about Dark Souls again, these are kind of like a parry, I suppose. These are quick little attacks that don't do any damage but can interrupt the enemy, so they're much quicker than carrying out an actual attack with your sword, so it's a quick little punch or a quick little kick. They only take a couple of frames to do it. They don't have any impact on your stamina, really, at all. But they don't do any damage. So it's a good way to, basically, if you see an attack coming in, like a slow attack from the enemy, you can quickly give them just a little tap. It sends them staggering back, and then you can follow up your own attacks or maneuver to a better spot. So it's a fundamental part of the game that hasn't been included up to this point, so hopefully I'll follow up dodging with the quick little attacks, or the interrupt attacks as I like to call them, next month, so they should be all in, and the combat will be starting to look a bit more fluid and a bit more involved. I've also made quite a few changes behind the scenes as well to things like the movement system, the blocking system, and different collisions and that sort of thing. It's nothing you can really visually see, but basically I've been removing a bit of the jank that was present, especially with the collision systems between yourself and enemies. It was a little bit average before, it was very, very, very rough. Now the player has pixel perfect collision when there needs to be pixel perfect collision, and just basically uses a box, bounding box for them when he doesn't need any proper collision. Things just feel a little bit more intuitive now, and the combat just feels a bit tighter as a result. But yeah, like I said, nothing too exciting, nothing you can really notice, but yeah, it all needs to be done regardless. It makes for a better game at the end of the day. And now, looking forward to next month, everything is pretty much on track for where it should be. I foresee a lot of animation next month, an absolute ton. So all these player animations are going to take a heap of time to do up. Player animations, like I said, are a big thing for next month. I'm also going to be working on a new level, so that's the castle level, or the town level, I should say. So that's, yeah, another level that's pretty far into the game, but I really want to make that one look really good. It's quite an important level. It's towards the end of the game. It's a fundamental level where the difficulty really starts to ramp up. So I really want to start on that now and get it looking really, really good by the time the game actually comes out. Music hasn't progressed any further this month. That's just a scheduling thing. Josh, John and I didn't get a chance to really get together and record it this month, so that should be happening next month. That's just a matter of organising a day, and then we sit down and actually record the whole thing. I mainly want to get the music done sooner rather than later because not next month, but the month after, perhaps, I would like to put together a proper gameplay trailer for the game, and obviously music is a big part of pretty much every game out there, and that needs to be present in the trailer to give the proper sort of, carry the proper experience of the game over to anyone watching it. That trailer will be basically, I suppose you can almost call it an announcement trailer. I haven't really announced this game anywhere apart from these videos themselves. So that might also be used on Steam Greenlight. That is something I want to get done sooner rather than later, even though the game is about, maybe a little bit more than halfway done at this point, somewhere around halfway. I want to get Steam Greenlight off the ground sooner rather than later so that when the game is finished, I don't have to sit there for a month or 2 months or however long it takes to get it through Greenlight, and I can just release straight to Steam when it's ready to go, which would be a lot better. Yeah, I really foresee some all-nighters in my future next month, and to be honest, probably all the way through to when this game comes out, but that's what you gotta do if you want to make a game.